Coming up, it's the story of a 1982 hit that had two very different lives. First released by a German-speaking 80s star, the song went top 5 in at least 10 different countries, but it crashed and burned in America. Although he would have his revenge with a different hit a few years later, a big one. But then an American prog rock band gone new wave pop, they got their hands on this song. They translated most of it into English, except a few mysterious lines, and they released it as a single that same year. It crashed and burned again. Deeply in debt, burned out, and at odds with their record company, this band decided to break up. Then out of nowhere, this track made a run for the top of the US charts just 2 months later, actually. Was the song's sudden success enough to get the band back together? Also, what did the mysterious chorus mean when translated into English? We all heard it in German. Find out next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you remember trying to draw your masterpiece on an Etch-a-Sketch as a kid, you're going to want to subscribe to this channel right now. Nostalgia all the time, I'm telling you. Remember to click the bell when you subscribe so you're notified when our latest interviews and videos drop. You can jump on the time machine with us every single day. We do it. We're also putting out full interviews and other content at our Patreon. Your support there helps us keep it a daily channel. So it's time for another edition of our series Bottle of Lightning, where we celebrate a song or album that was king for a day. Here we honor artists and bands that rocketed up the charts, but for reasons sometimes unknown weren't able to sustain that success. And we try to figure out what it is. Called by some one-hit wonders, we celebrate them as lightning in a bottle. Previous episodes, we've covered Too Shy by Kajagoogoo, I Melt With You by Modern English, and 99 Luftballons by German sensation Nina. Today, we're going to feature another German language song that was actually a hit twice in the 80s by two different acts. The first time, it didn't take in America, though its writer would have a huge smash later on in America. Crazy story there. Of course, I'm talking about the international smash, Der Kommissar, first made famous overseas by Falco, and then later here in the US by prog rockers gone new wave pop After the Fire.
Alles klar, Herr Kommissar.
So let's get into it. One of the most successful pop artists ever to come out of Austria, Johann Hosel, aka Falco, was a musical prodigy. As a child, he received formal classical training. Later, he joined the punk band Dra de Waberl in 1978. But where he made his mark was as a solo artist. Like I hinted to earlier, he is best known to American audiences for his 1986 #1 hit, Rock Me Amadeus. But before Amadeus, there was Der Kommissar, which in English translates to the Commissioner. Written with the help of songwriter Robert Ponger, Falco actually wasn't all that confident about the song's commercial appeal. He thought it would best serve as a B-side for another track that he thought was a lot stronger, Helden von Heute, or Heroes of Today. However, when he took the two songs to his manager Horst Bork, Bork was adamant that Der Kommissar was the stronger song. Falco, for his part, was hesitant. The track was a mixture of German and English lyrics and combined rap verses with a sung chorus. Kind of unusual in that day and age. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, na ist es nix dabei, na wenn ich euch erzähl die Geschichte. Plus, this techno pop track, it's all about drug use. Tells the story of a cocaine user, a dealer, and a police commissioner who is out and about. Translating the German into English, there are multiple allusions to cocaine in the song, from the use of the word snow to phrases like her nose does the talking and your zest for life will kill you. He thought it might be too controversial for mainstream audiences. Hey, wanna buy some stuff, man? For his part, Falco went with Bork's suggestion and released the track as the second single from his 1982 solo album, Einzelhaft. And as it turned out, Der Kommissar was a hit around the world. It went to number 11 in Canada. It went to number 7 in Australia, number 5 in France and Finland, number 4 in New Zealand and Sweden, number 3 in Norway, and it went to number 2 in Switzerland. And it went to number 1 in Italy, Spain, Austria, and West Germany. I mean, the only real place it struggled was in the United States. Here in the States, it missed the Hot 100 completely. Didn't fare much better on the Cashbox chart. I think it went to number 74. Did get some spins in U.S. dance clubs, which helped it reach number 10 on the dance chart. Also went to number 22 on the mainstream rock chart. So it did have some niche success. And for U.S. audiences, Falco shot a pretty entertaining music video that had him on the run and also dancing in front of stock footage of police cars behind him. So there is that. Check it out, Joe. But overall, Falco's original version of Der Kommissar didn't make any noise in America. Like I pointed out, Rock Me Amadeus was the standout hit here for him. For U.S. listeners, it has overshadowed a lot of his other work. But Falco was by no means a one-hit wonder. If you look at his output outside the U.S., you'll discover that he had 20-plus top 40 hits internationally. I mean, in his home country of Austria, he kicked out 17 top 10 hits, and he had 10 top 10 hits in Germany as well. Also, he made multiple chart appearances in Switzerland, the Netherlands, Sweden, Ireland, and New Zealand. He's huge in Europe. Plus, he had another Hot 100 hit here in the States. In 1985, he released Vienna Calling, and that one reached number 18. You know what? Should we cover Rock Me Amadeus in the future? Let me know in the comments. So, I just wanted to, give Falco the credit he deserves before I move on here. He actually passed away some years ago. It was back in 1999. He was 2 weeks shy of his 41st birthday. When it comes to the story of Der Kommissar, though, we got to talk about After the Fire, or ATF for short. Now, as we further straighten out this story, I do want to recognize our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear, the glasses I always wear on here. You've probably noticed over the years that I have a lot of different styles and colors of Zennis. Actually, I have about 15 pair, worn them for 3 years. Not one pair has been broken or worn down. Quality for the price, pretty incredible. It's the perfect time to get a pair of Zennis. All you got to do is click on the info button right up here or go to our link below and get the special POR pricing of up to 80% off regular retail prices. Do it today. So originally formed in 1971, early 1972, ATF started out with Peter Memory Banks on keyboards, John Leach on bass, and Ian Adamson on drums. Incidentally, this is not the same Peter Banks of Yes fame. Two different guys. But this original incarnation of After the Fire wouldn't last long, only until December of 72. At this point, Peter left to play keyboards alongside John Russell for Narnia, the band, not the fantasy world inside the wardrobe. However, in 74, Peter and Ian reformed ATF and started auditioning guitarists. Andy Piercy got the nod, and actually he and Peter would be the band's two constants throughout the 70s into the 80s. Back through their first 4 albums, After the Fire had a revolving door of guitarists, drummers, and basses. They boasted about 12 different members during that span. Now, initially, ATF played progressive rock in the style of Genesis or Yes. Actually, their first album, Signs of Change, was recorded on their own label and released in 77. Said Banks about it, "We were into the progressive rock thing, where a song would definitely take a lot more than 3 minutes and 10 seconds, which was the ideal single length. So there wasn't really a way we could get the material out unless it was on the album." This meant that in the midst of the British punk explosion, when everything was changing, their music was extremely unfashionable. Chart success was near non-existent. But throughout their career, After the Fire was continually evolving. And according to Banks, they began to write songs that were more hip and current and energetic and shorter. Their second album, Laser Love, that followed in 1979. It featured ATF's only 2 charting singles aside from Der Kommissar. Both landed in the UK. One Rule for You, that reached number 40, and Laser Love went to number 62. One rule for you, one rule for me. Just like a laser, laser love. Now, by the time After the Fire released their third record, ADF, their lineup started to stabilize. It was Peter Banks on keyboards, Andy Piercy on lead vocals and bass, John Russell on guitar, and Pete King on drums. And then the band released their fourth album, called Batteries Not Included. That came in '82. So 1982 would prove to be a busy year for the band. Hitting the road to promote Batteries Not Included, they tour with some really big names, Electric Light Orchestra, Queen, and Van Halen. Actually, their Van Halen stint was a really big deal for the band. 51 US dates in 99 days, playing to huge crowds and getting massive exposure. On paper, it seemed like they were finally ready to break out as a band. However, the experience, it was frustrating on multiple levels. Now, first off, ATF's label CBS refused to promote any of their albums. And their contract had left them deeply in debt to the label, so they weren't making any money either. I guess the guys were only taking home like 40 pounds a week. But then, after CBS sanctioned the Van Halen tour, they changed their mind 2 weeks later. They called the band back to the studio to record an all-new album. Fed up, After the Fire refused, and they just kept on touring. But in August of 1982, they would release a compilation record called Der Kommissar, which also featured an English cover of Falco's Der Kommissar. During this time, ATF was actually on the verge of signing a new deal with Atlantic Records. This would finally give them the financial footing they desperately needed as a band. However, their version of Der Kommissar, it went to number 12 in Canada. And with dollar signs in their eyes, CBS refused to release them from that contract. Now, back in the US, Der Kommissar, it wasn't going anywhere. At least not yet. So by this point, it was pretty clear to the band they weren't going anywhere. They were broke, they were at odds with their label, and they were internally divided over the direction of the band. So they decided it was time to quit and just cut their losses. December of '82, after completing their tour with the mighty Van Halen, the foursome played one last show at Dominion Theatre in London. And that night they announced that they were effectively done. Instead of breaking out, they were breaking up. But get this, just a couple months later, 2 to be exact, Der Kommissar started climbing the Hot 100. By March, it had broken into the top 40, and it ultimately reached number 5 on the chart. It spent a total of 14 weeks in the US top 40. Der Kommissar also went to number 5 on the Cashbox chart, and it went to number 4 on the US mainstream rock chart. Internationally, it hit number 20 in Sweden, number 17 in Australia, 13 in New Zealand, number 12 in Canada, and it went to number 2 in South Africa. After the Fire finally had their first huge hit. Well, their first hit at all. And the band was defunct. The commercial breakthrough had just come too late. Even though the single was a worldwide hit, the band, they refused to get back together. So recounting the origins of ATF's Der Kommissar, Peter said, we recorded Batteries Not Included in Munich, and I ended up spending a lot of time in Germany. There was a music scene called Neue Deutsche Welle, which translated literally means New German Wave or German New Wave. It had a real excitement and breath of fresh air about it. I heard Falco's original song when it was little known and presented a way of doing a cover to the guys in ATF, and they loved it.
Alles klar, Herr Kommissar.
So Peter bought the record, he translated the lyrics into English, and the rest, of course, is history. ATF's translation retains the gist of Falco's original storyline. Still got the drug references and some familiar lines. The cover also includes some German phrases, including the catchy chorus.
Alles klar, Herr Kommissar.
Now, for this revamped version of the track, Banks explained their goal was to merge the ideas of pop music and rock music. This was a very deliberate approach. They didn't want the song to be too heavy, but not too light. Actually, Peter called Falco's original quite lightweight. So he really wanted to beef it up, give us some guts and some energy.
It's a clear case, Herr Kommissar, 'cause all the children know.
All this played well to American audiences at the time who had started embracing new wave and new romantic music. as for the music video. It played a major role in the success of the song as well. It's a story we tell a lot on the channel. If you wanted commercial traction in the 80s, you had to get a video into heavy rotation on MTV. And Der Kommissar, it did that in spades. It got extensive airplay thanks to its mysterious vibe, a stunning femme fatale, and that catchy Don't Turn Around chorus. Definitely a classic from the early 80s. As far as pop culture goes, though, Der Kommissar has appeared in a lot of movies, TV shows. The list includes The Wedding Singer in '98, Friends in 2004. Everybody Hates Chris in 2006, Pineapple Express in 2008, Skateland in 2010, Family Guy.
Der Kommissar geht
Take Me Home Tonight, Atomic Blonde. And Russian Doll, all very recently. Now, as far as covers go, in 1983, Laura Branigan, she recorded her own version of the song. It's more of an extended sample, really. The track is called Deep in the Dark. I guess while she was working on her sophomore studio album, Branigan 2, her producer played Falco's Der Kommissar for her, and this led to Branigan embracing the backing arrangement, but adding her own new lyrics.
I'll tell you a secret if you know where to keep it and you promise not to tell.
The plan was to release it as a single, actually. But as After the Fire's version started moving up the charts, Branigan and her label worried the song's revived popularity would blunt the impact of Deep in the Dark, so they didn't release it.
She told you every single lie she swore.
Another interesting and unexpected cover was done by Trent Reznor. This was years before he established Nine Inch Nails. He was actually still in high school at the time, part of a new wave outfit called Option 30. It's actually kind of fun. Check it out. So after ATF's Der Kommissar rocketed up the charts, they did release one more single, actually. A re-recording of an earlier track called Dancing in the Shadows. It barely scratched the surface on the Hot 100, though. It stalled at number 85. Usually it can hit top 40 from such a bigger hit beforehand, but it didn't happen.
Spend my time dancing in the shadows.
So let's get to the elephant in the room. The obvious question with Der Kommissar racing up the charts. Why didn't After the Fire get back together again and capitalize on the success? I guess the band was just too far gone by this point. The lack of money, the bad contract, the poor relationship with their label, and internal decisions about the future of the band. It was all just too much for them to overcome. Peter Banks would put it this way. We'd spent 7 months outside the country touring, and we were absolutely and utterly burnt out. If you've lived together with people that you've known for a long time, there are other things that happen. The pressure of trying to write songs. In the songwriting team, we were pulled in a different direction. So the result of the material that we were producing, it just wasn't that strong. So that's why I felt we had to do a cover song. But at the end of 1982, it hadn't worked. People were saying, your ideas are no good, Banksy. It was just enormous pressure, end of quote. I guess it must have been a relief for them just to move on. I mean, you can't really blame them after all that they faced.
It's got the power and you're so weak and your frustration will not let you.
All the band members continue with music after the split, though. Peter Banks and drummer Pete King formed the group Zip Codes with vocalist Keith Smith. Sadly, Pete King then died of cancer in 1987. John Russell formed Press Any Key with brother Rob, and singer Andy Piercy continued briefly under the name ATF before signing with CBS for a solo album, though it actually never saw the light of day. Although the band reunited for a couple of special events, things lay dormant until 2004. That's when Peter Banks and John Russell, in an After the Fire fan club, played a casual karaoke set for brave fans to perform their favorite tracks. This spurred a flurry of activity, resulting in the recruitment of ex-Zip Codes cohort Keith Smith on vocals. The resurrected band then performed at the Greenbelt Arts Festival in 2004 and 2005. However, Smith left the group in 2007. In 2008, ATF was joined by drummer Tim Turner and frontman Rob Halligan. From there, the band continued to perform up until about 2013. You know, the first time I heard this 80s classic, for a split second, I actually thought it was The Cure. I was aware of The Cure pretty early on because I had a punk rock aunt who played all kinds of underground music. But as I continued to listen, I realized it was someone else. Now, it took a while for me to figure out who it was because the DJ didn't name the band. I think it was a few weeks later when I heard it on the American Top 40 with Casey Kasem. Now, this was a song that I had to record off the radio because this band was just too obscure for the few places that carried records and cassettes in my small town in Idaho. This song made me very curious since part of it was in German. And I remember there was this guy that went to my church and he taught German in high school. And one day I got the guts to walk up to him and ask him what the song meant. So I sung the lines, Alles klar, Herr Kommissar.
Alles klar, Herr Kommissar.
And he said, oh yeah, well that means is everything okay, officer? I was like, what? He said, oh, it means is everything okay, officer? It was a definite 80s style drink your Ovaltine moment for me.
Ovaltine? A crummy commercial?
I mean, I thought when decoded, when translated, it would be some secret message. It would be amazing. It definitely sounded cooler in German. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Leave us a comment about Falco, After the Fire, and Der Kommissar. What do you remember about the different versions of this song? What do you remember about the song? What did you think? What are your memories? Did you know what it meant? Did you ever try to translate or get somebody to tell you? Let us know below. If you like our content, we do invite you to subscribe. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Till next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.